Well, folks, welcome back to Three's In. Grab a cup of coffee. I got a few things to share with you. So, on 11 June 1970, we walked into Seaflight and met our T-37 flight commander, the assistant flight commander, and our assigned instructor pilots. And somewhat of a rude awakening. I'll get into the nuts and bolts of that here in a minute. At any rate, we were on late week, which meant we reported probably around 1 o'clock or so, and the day took off from there. Do I actually remember it was late week? Oh, no, come on, give me a break. I saved my grade sheet. So a lot of these stories I'm going to share with you in the coming weeks and months are going to be things that I recall off of these grade sheets. So to give you an example, on the 11th of June at 1:30, we had an event called P0101, which probably was an indoctrination to T-37 flying. And an eye-opener that was. They told us about the ROE, the rules of engagements, and the flight BINOs, or BINO this, or BINO that, or BINO that. Okay, got it. Our instructors were all, I think they were all pretty good guys for the most part. Major Fred Murphy was our flight commander, and what a character he was. I did not know him much. I didn't fly with him, but I knew he had been an A-37 pilot in Vietnam. And I say he was a character. Typically, the day would begin with the flight commander walking into the flight room, taking his place at the podium, followed by all the other IPs. And every time Major Murphy walked into the flight room, he had a list about him. I don't know what it was. It's like he overg'd himself and he never could get quite right. But he'd walk in every day holding a cup of coffee in his left hand and a cigarette in his right hand. And he kind of leaned into the walk, actually kind of glided into it. And that's all I remember about Major Fred Murphy. Otherwise, pretty good guy. Then there was our assistant flight commander, Captain Bill Christ. Now, Captain Christ was a vertically challenged individual and wore a crew cut. And I'm getting ahead of myself. So Captain Chris, one of the first responsibilities we learned he had was to conduct an open ranks inspection with us. What the hell, you ask? Oh yeah. We had to file out of the flight room just outside the back door and line up in proper military orders, and then he'd walk through the ranks and look us up and down, giving us a once-over for an open ranks inspection. And I remember very well. He would get to me and he'd look at me and go, "Holliker, boots!" And I'd look down. He said, "Who gave you permission to eyeball the area, Lieutenant?" Oh, no, I don't know. And that's kind of the way it got started. And then the IPs. And my IP that I was assigned was a fella named Russ Sweets. And God, I just love the hell out of that guy. What a great IP he was. Now, Russ was a plowback, and there was a certain contingent of the force that did not like the word plowback because they found it demeaning. So plowbacks today are called FAPEs. Anyway, Russ was a plowback and didn't think one way or the other about it. He just enjoyed flying and he enjoyed teaching, and it showed. I just had so much fun flying with him. And I can honestly tell you I am here today because of flying with Russ Sweets. A sad note to this, a footnote, he passed away of cancer in 1973, about a year and a half after we graduated. He had a melanoma, and it killed him. And it was really tough to deal with that. Another IP that we had in our flight was Captain Joe Stewart. Now, I make mention of him. I never flew with him. But he used to walk into the flight room, and he was always dressed impeccably. What I mean by that, he would have his flight suits ironed. I don't know anybody that did that. We just put them in the washer, hung them up, and went with them. Now, these were the old K2Bs, the cotton flight suits. Anyway, he would have his ironed. And he was a big man on campus, that's for sure. The other thing remarkable about Captain Stewart was he dated the wing commander's daughter, Colin Charette. And I later ran into Colin Charette when I got back to Randolph in mid 1980s. He would come to the 560th Dining Inns, and he would mention Joe Stewart, and we'd sit there and laugh about it. But that's kind of the way it was. Like I said, flew with Russ Sweets for the majority of my training there. I also flew with Captain John McBrome, or Lieutenant John McBrome, who was our class commander. And Boomer was a screamer. There's no other way to put it. I mean, if you didn't measure up to what he thought you should be doing, he'd scream louder. And some guys he grabbed the hose with, I guess. He didn't do that with me. But I can tell you one time flying with the Boomer, he got pissed off at something I did. I don't know what he did. He would take his mask, unclip it, and then look out the right side of the window. In the Tweet, the IP sat on the right side and the student on the left, of course. So we're flying along, and he got pissed off at something I did. I don't know what I did. Who knows? Who cares? Anyway, he unclasped his mask and just turned and started staring out the right side. And I said, well, son of a bitch. So I undid mine, turned my head and looked out the left side. And then I thought, how stupid is this? You know, if you're a bird, you're going to think to yourself, look at those two jerks, both of them looking at the other side with their mask dropped. So I went, oh crap. So I hooked mine up and kept flying the airplane and let him do his thing over there. That was about it. I'll tell you a little bit more about Boomer as I get into the Tweet program. Now, another thing we were introduced to at this time was a thing that we called the boner board. Now, the boner board was a board that had a piece of plastic over the top. It was a piece of plexiglass, and then they put up a Playboy picture, and then they put up a sheet of paper cut into 1-inch squares. And they had all our names down the one side of it. And whenever you'd screw up, that was called a boner. And depending on the degree of the screw up, you were assessed 1 or 2 squares. There were a bunch of squares that went across that covered the Playmate picture, and they were a quarter a square. So usually, okay, peel off 3 boners. So you'd peel off 3 squares, and then you threw 75 cents into the kitty, and that was used at the end of Tweets to buy the beer. So anyway, we kind of ran through them like that. And I'll tell you a little bit more how that worked as we go along. The other thing in the introduction to Tweets is they did give us fair warning about the railroad track outside the base. Outside the base, outside Randolph, we had a railroad track, and on early weeks the trains were running. And they did tell us sometimes those trains stopped, but that was not an excuse for being late. Holy crap, holy crap, holy crap. On early week, I always made sure that when I was driving that we left at least 15, 20 minutes earlier than we needed to be there. But that gave the guys time to pick up a Coke and a bag of peanuts. Now, I'd never seen that before, but a certain number of guys would get a Coke, and they'd take a bag of peanuts and put in the Coke and drink it. I was good with the coffee. Most everybody else at that time, or a lot of guys at that time, smoked also. That was another pain in the ass, but anyway. I think that's about all I need to say about our introduction to Tweets. It was an exciting period. It was fun to be there. We were, oh God, we were just so motivated at that time. And like I said, it's 54 years ago, but it seems like it was just yesterday. So that's about it, and I'll get into the nuts and bolts of the program here as we go forward. Once again, thanks for tuning in. This is Bubble Base Gear. Stop.